Hey everyone, my name is Kian. Welcome to our first episode of Behind the Voice. Today, I am joined by one of our narrators, one of our beloved narrators here at the Dark Cosmos, Thomas Barker from New Zealand. Please give it up for Thomas, everyone. All right, Thomas, how's your day, man? How's your day?
It's good. It is currently, I'm looking out at a skylight here. It is drizzling, and it is cold, and it is dark, because we're currently in the tail end of winter here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So it's a beautiful day for staying inside.
So when do you have the heater on right now?
Do you know what? I'm actually one of those people who it helps for recording horror because I enjoy the cold. So the cold and dark and brutal really appeals to me. So no, I'm sitting here freezing. My breath is coming out in mist. It's very metal, very brutal. Perfect. Then
I don't know. It reminded me of the thing when you said about smoky breath.
Absolutely. Or you'll find me like trapped outside a maze somewhere, like the end of The Shining, in that weird like freeze frame where he's all like. Anyway. I'm not going to do that because I keep forgetting this is visual, and that's not normally a problem I have to contend with. But anyway.
We got to give our audiences a good show, right?
That's true. So I'm going to look goofy as hell, and it's going to be fine.
So today, we want to formally introduce you to our audience, because here at the Dark Cosmos, we're primarily audio-only experience, and this is the first time that people get to see us. In real life, like really showing our faces out there. I wanted to start this podcast because, like I said earlier before when we were chatting off camera, I wanted us to connect more to our audiences, especially those are like, I guess, hardcore fans who are really into the Dark Cosmos. And got a few questions for you and also from the audience that we're gonna tackle. Can you tell us how you got into voice acting?
Yeah, definitely. So I've always been I've always loved performing since I was little, and that's specifically acting and singing, so music. And music has kind of been my entry point into a lot of live performance. So, I remembered auditioning for Les Miserables when I was 12 and doing that. And, so I was like the role, some people out there who know musical theatre will know Les Mis. So I got the role of Gavroche in a local production, and he gets a little solo song, except midway through that particular show, so going out, a couple of nights a week for rehearsals and juggling that with school and everything, little 12-year-old Thomas Barker, my voice broke halfway through the production, which meant that I wasn't able to actually. So I went from being, like, a little people know, a little people know, and so there were two of us. Luckily, there were two kids sharing that role, but I was suddenly no longer able to do that. But I got to still be involved in the production, and it was traumatic at the time. But
I could imagine.
Yeah, it was really horrible because there was a lot of competition to get that part, and I beat out all these other little kids. Anyway. But that was really, really formative, and it's a bit of a cliche, but I got the bug, so always really involved in that. And I have always been fascinated by voices, specifically different accents, and the way that people can disappear into characters.
Right.
There's a lot of guff said about method acting, and there's a lot of illusion and kind of people get overly put on pedestals, But I do think there's a lot of really interesting stuff. So anyway, long story short, always been involved with performance in various aspects. But of course, when lockdown started happening with COVID, and it wasn't possible to perform in venues or do things like that, or at least it was very, very restricted, it had always been in the back of my mind, you know, and I love The Simpsons and Futurama and just the way that people can create these different characters. So I thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity to just kind of have a go. And I really had no clue what I was doing, but I got this microphone and... Exactly. And just thought, well, look, if someone's going to... I mean, my object was hopefully someone will pay me some money, and people eventually did pay me a very, very little bit of money. And
$5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll come to that, I'm sure, because, of course, that's how we connected, was through Fiverr, and still do. Might as well give them a plug for what it's worth, as if they need one. And yeah, and it's kind of grown, and my involvement with the Dark Cosmos has been right there from the very get-go. So this all started about the beginning of 2021, and I've just basically taken my background in live performance and all the stuff I sort of feel like I know from that, and tried to learn and be as self-taught as possible and channel it all into this little vibrating device here. Yeah.
When you mentioned that you're always into voices, did you mean specifically through radio shows, or more of like the cartoon side, or other kind of media?
I guess the
or was it a mix
like
of
it was definitely a mix, but the one specific example that I may as well I will you heard it here first, folks. I am a bit of a gamer, and especially role-playing games. So again, there's that aspect of telling a story. And I remember when I was about 12 years old, I got a copy of Baldur's Gate 2. This story does have a point. Baldur's Gate 2, and that has some, that's got a fair amount of dialogue, voiced dialogue, which was just really getting big in the sort of early 2000s. And the villain in that game, John Irenicus, is played by, and this is where you might have to cut, so I don't know whether that works, because I'm about to forget the guy's name. My god, he's a fantastic actor. Give me 2 seconds, Ken, because I don't want to look like an idiot here, and I'll start this bit of the story again. 2 seconds.
Oh, you're fine. No. I think audiences would appreciate if there was no cut. They'd be like, oh, they'll be left wondering, what's he talking about? What is he?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Author?
Oh, what the hell is his name? I just man.
And you said this was back in the early 2000s?
Like 2002, I think the game came out. Or 2000, actually.
2000.
He's like a really quite well-known actor. Hang on, he was in Twin Peaks, and
that's all right.
He's died now.
Yeah.
Okay, no, sorry. I'm just gonna.
While you're searching for that, I was gonna say, what was I doing in the year 2000? I was in third grade. I think I was in third grade back then, and I remember winning a storytelling contest out of like 7 or 8 sections, and the story was about a frog. I forgot exactly what it was, but some kind of frog.
And that was actually storytelling. So you spoke this to people or whatever.
Yeah, like I think oration. Like more not just simple narration with just being lively. It was a live narration.
Well, that's a huge skill. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, you see it. And the skills of oration and rhetoric especially, have always been fundamental. I mean, the thing I always find really interesting is political figures. And, there's almost a suspicion nowadays when people seem too good at speaking or too glib or whatever. But of course, back in the day, that was this huge thing. But to return to, so I'll just start the story again. Yeah, so Baldur's Gate, I remember playing that when I was around 10 or 12. And the villain in the game is played as John Irenicus, who was played by David Warner, who was a Shakespearean English actor, often played villains in a lot of TV, stage, screen. He was in like Star Trek a bunch of times, heaps of stuff. But he just had this amazing voice. And I remember not even knowing like who he was or anything, but just thinking, holy crap, that guy's voice. This very patrician, I can't do it justice, but he has this great line where he's fighting a bunch of wizards. And again, this is 2000 era graphics, so it's like little sprites and just repeated effects. But then you've got this voice going, you will suffer. You will all suffer. And and that has just stuck in my head forever. So I think that's what I've always gone back to.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, people like Billy West from Futurama and obviously Dan Castellaneta from The Simpsons, and yeah, all that kind of stuff is really, really influential for me.
Aside from that game you mentioned, did you look up to anyone else in either the voice industry or like the movie industry? I mean, entertainment industry.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I don't think, in terms of actual performers, I mean, when I was studying singing, you're always advised to look at specific people and not to emulate exactly, but as sort of examples of technique and ability that you can, especially if they relate to your own set, because so that's always an interesting thing, like, because my voice is actually fairly high. It's not like I can sort of fake doing like gravelly deep stuff, but my actual voice is resonant, but it's actually sort of quite high pitched, right? So
and just to be sure, this is your natural voice, right? You're not voice acting right now.
The problem is it's like always, it comes and goes, so it's always a little bit affected. Because I'm also very aware of, like the Kiwi accent. So I'll notice, like, this is kind of interesting. When I'm emotional or excited, just in normal conversation, and not and not concentrating on talking to someone, then my voice will tend to sort of go up, and I'll get really excited, and my accent will come out even stronger. Let's not go too far. But then normally, if I, it's they talk about code switching nowadays, which I know is a bit more loaded, but to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the situation we find ourselves. For example, if you're in a job interview, you will want to speak in a more measured way and try and sound more serious and like you take your time and all that sort of thing. But then, yeah, so it's always. I think everyone does it, whether it's conscious or not. We alter our voices. Yeah, but some other examples. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, people like David Warner. I mean, Laurence Olivier, some of the older British actors. There's another one, again, and interestingly enough, this was from a audio version of The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. And I had got these were CDs I got out from the library when I was about 13. And I forget the name of the actor, but he was the guy who played, there was a British TV series called, I want to say, it was It was a British TV series that the quite famous American show All in the Family.
Kira will know this for sure.
She will, yeah. Oh, she might. It's a bit before her time. But anyway, yeah. There's a really good actor played this character called Alf Garnett. But anyway, they made All in the Family with, I forget now, but that's another famous, they literally, the opening of Family Guy is a parody of All in the Family, so look it up, kids. It's really, really famous. Trust me. Norman Lear, the guy who created it, is still alive, and he's about 100 years old. Anyway, but this guy, Alf Garnett, played Shylock in this production of The Merchant of Venice for audio. That was a BBC audio production, and that also really, really informed. We have a schools competition in New Zealand where you put on like a Shakespeare competition, so you do like little short excerpts of Shakespeare, and I pretty much we did a little mini version of The Merchant of Venice when I was about 14, and I directed it and did all that, and I pretty much just copied, like, as best I could, the voice that guy did on that audio production for The Merchant of Venice. So that was really influential as well. Cool.
Well, you mentioned earlier that when you started your Fiverr journey, you started your Fiverr profile back in 2021, and it made me curious, like looking back, because it's been 2 years that we've been working together. Looking back at when we first worked with each other, and do you still remember that the Fiverr posts that I kind of not exactly, but I wanted to ask, what made you reach out to my job post on Fiverr?
I will say I don't remember the specifics. However,
Gotcha.
what I do remember was, because I coming into it with really I hadn't really done any freelance work, so I didn't know what was usual, and I'm not the most I'm not the most savvy at self-promotion. So anyway, but what I remember was I had done a couple of just little jobs, and it was mostly YouTube explainer type videos or top 10s, which I still do a lot of, and doing this kind of, again, because I just thought, well, what are these things usually like? So I would do kind of like, this sort of, okay guys, here are the top 10 things you need to know about blah blah blah, and
go.
So to actually see, I'm probably talking a bit loud now, to actually see like this is creative storytelling, it's character based, all these things. And if I remember rightly, this was that Harry Potter story. And
oh, that's right. That's right.
So hang on, let me. yeah. Harry Potter sci-fi horror. And if I
goodness.
go back, scroll all the way back to May 9th was the first. Hang on. Yeah, May 9th was when we first started working together.
Yeah.
And
it was like it was a fanfic.
This was before
story, and then kind of like we made a darker version, or like like a bit of a darker version of Harry Potter.
And luckily, I sent you a sample, and luckily you agreed to use it, even though it was not very good. My adult Harry Potter voice was not great, but luckily you decided to keep me on. Yeah, but that was the thing. I mean, basically, and still with freelance work on either people I work with directly or through other freelance sites. I mean, I will always prioritize, creative, character-based work, because that's what I'm passionate about.
Gotcha. So when it's been 2 years now that we've been working with each other, I wanted to ask what are the top 3 stories that you've loved creating for the channel?
So I'll answer this question in a slightly indirect way.
Sure. There's
the types of stories. I mean, I always enjoy anything that people like, if you're willing to. So the interesting thing about Dark Cosmos, I think, and the really cool thing is, because there's there are different narrators, and that gives something, either people who listen and enjoy the story. Hello, everybody. You are very, very much appreciated and loved, by the way. Thank you. But it means, one, you can either go, well, I like, Teresa, the way she reads her stories, the types of characters she creates, and so I'm going to focus on her. Or you can go, well, I actually really like the variety, and so on and so forth. So while I acknowledge that, obviously, you're always going to want to go, well, okay, Thomas has this particular niche, so we'll go for that. Because everyone does have their strengths. Not everyone can do everything.
Absolutely.
But I must say, I always appreciate whenever I get the chance to do something that I'm like, okay, I'm really going to have to, this isn't just in my pocket, so to speak. I'm going to have to really try and do a different type of character than I'm used to, or something like that. Right. So
like you really, I mean, you really want to embody the, or like channel the character personality through your voice.
Absolutely. And the further away it is from me just going like, It was a grim morning when I decided to set out and, take this opportunity. Really challenging, I guess. I mean, we all want a challenge to some extent.
Which also reminds me of the time when you did when you did a Spanish accent a year ago, more than a year ago, with that story, the magician. It was part of our Dark Whispers.
Dark God. Yes, Dark Whispers.
Sorry, the Dark God series.
The Dark God, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. And it is also interesting because I will occasionally, I mean, you find, because you do voice acting yourself, I will find that, like anything, there's what people
voice acting. I'm really super amateur.
I mean, without us getting all, to each other, dude, you have a lot of ability that I really, I think you're cultivating, and it's really fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Yeah, but I think I find, and in fact, I would like to revisit that accent, because sometimes I'll be just like, there'll be a month where I'm like, well, I really want to try this, and because I think if you asked me to try and do like a generic Spanish accent now, one, it would probably be borderline cartoonish, and I'd have to, it wouldn't be there. But at the time I was going, oh, well, I'd really kind of like to try something different, and you'd sort of do it, and it gets into the short-term muscle memory. Yeah, so actually thank you for reminding me of that, because it makes me want to go back and revisit that and go, well, actually I'd like to see if I can bring that into the repertoire in a way that is believable, because that's the other kind of interesting thing coming from New Zealand. The natural New Zealand accent, when it's not getting confused with an Australian one, which is, I can understand why that would happen, is at the very least it's noticeable now, but it's not hugely in demand either. So I find most of the time I'm not using my real voice. But anyway, to circle back to the question about my 3 favorite stories.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Or maybe even if you don't have 3, 1 or 2 stories that really stood out to you when you were crafting it.
For sure. I mean, these are all for sort of weird reasons. I mean, the day the moon disappeared. I mean, that's a bit of a cheat, because that was a big, really long story. I used my sort of normal voice for most of that. And I think also, as a link of stories that I enjoy, and not always successfully, and again, thank you for allowing me to experiment a bit, is when I get to sort of play around with effects and plugins and really create otherworldly sounds, which I think is what absolutely. The Dark Cosmos is all about, right? It's there in the name. So, and it's really good to read feedback, when it's meant in good faith. Because some stuff are just outright insults. You can definitely separate the insults from people who are giving constructive criticism towards absolutely
creating a better story or a better ambience for them to enjoy more.
And of course, it's always dangerous wading into comments, but even I totally get it. Not everything's for everyone, so I get it if you don't like,
absolutely.
If you don't like my voice, or you don't like, that is perfectly your opinion. I'm not going to be annoyed about that. I get it. There's lots of stuff out there I don't like. But anyway, right.
Or people who don't like sound effects and the background music.
Yeah, some people don't. Yeah, definitely. Or overly. Yeah, and that's actually been really valuable, because I realized I probably at some points in the past I've overdone it with saturation, where the voice becomes indistinct. Anyway, so the day the moon disappeared was really, really fun. I enjoyed. This was an odd one, and I don't know how well the overall story. Well, I mean every story that we all do is incredible, but I just remember doing this voice, and this is really just a kind of a personal. And it's a completely eccentric personal whim of mine, and it probably doesn't even work that effectively, but it's a voice that I always want to get, and I'm still working on. But the mercenary story, there's a story, I forget what it's called, about a mercenary captain, and there's a stone.
This was way back in 2021, right?
This was ages ago, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
I remember it because it was lighter on effects, if I remember rightly, but... Okay, this is just complete. There's a voice actor called... Actually, this ties back into the early question. The guy who does the voice for Zaid Masani in... I think that's his name. In... oh, God, what's that trilogy of games called? Mass Effect. In the Mass Effect trilogy.
Okay.
There was a voice actor called David Sachs, who has since died. But he has this amazing... I can't do it justice. But he has this sort of incredible London, but it's like he's got something wrong with his throat. It's so husky. But it sounds really cool and badass to me, anyway.
He's got something wrong in his throat in the right way.
In the right way, exactly. Yeah, like I think he's a lot of cigarettes. I don't want to do the guy. I don't want to like impugn the man's honor or anything. But yeah, it's one of those whiskey and cigarettes voices, and
Gotcha.
not naturally having one of those. I really enjoyed that, and anytime I get to sort of do something like that, actually, hopefully this isn't giving anything away, but for one of the it's for the 3 Rules story. Wait, has that come out yet?
No, not yet.
It hasn't. Okay. Well, you can cut this if this is spoilers. But for the 3 Rules story,
I think I posted something of the 3 Rules. I posted a teaser, so some people will know about that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anyway, but the voice I did for that is really, really like. I wanted to see how much, while still like keeping my vocal health, how much I could kind of push, like really raspy, buzzy sounding voice. Just like try and do something really extreme that also doesn't make you go ugh. So anyway, I've said like 1-2 stories I like, and
focus.
Yeah.
I'm playing.
It's good. No, that's all good.
Yeah, no, you mentioned 2. So the Day the Moon Disappeared, the mercenary story.
The mercenary story
around late October, or actually like I think August, summer 2021, and then I kind of re-uploaded it with a different title back in October or November.
Yeah, and then any stories that basically, and just to give a more general category, anything that lets me do, try and sort of push myself, or something that is really kind of surprising or strange, or that's what really gives me sort of enjoyment to do.
Gotcha. So we've talked about some of your favorite stories, and obviously people know that a lot of time goes into recording the story and doing all the post-production, and I wanted to ask if I wanted to know the process of how you record, like the technical details, or maybe you even have a ritual you follow when recording. Can you share with us a little more of how you record the stories?
I sure can, Kian. Okay. So
Number
in
1.
general, yeah, here we go. In general, although not always, but in general, I prefer to record in the morning. I don't record in this room, but this is just easier for just sort of visually, and the Wi-Fi is a bit stronger in this room. I record like in this little cupboard booth thing. This is quite an old house, so it's got some really, really good spaces that are really quite sort of dead. Anyway, so I tend to record in the morning because I've got more, I guess, like I'm more able to engage. I'm not as tired, especially for a Dark Cosmos story.
More clarity.
Exactly, and because I do get really involved, I will tend to, if I've got other things that I need to do, I will tend to do the Dark Cosmos first, or I'll get a short little script or couple of lines out of the way just to bring me into it. I always warm up before I record, so I've got a lot of singing things, so I'll start off with breathing exercises, and I'll do trills and stuff like that, and all all that kind of shit. And a little bit of, and then just, just checking that's all working. So I'll do that for a little while. And then, it's a matter of like, sometimes if I've got a decent amount of time to do a story and I can afford to wait, I'll wait until a day where I feel really like, I'll have a quick skim through, and I'll wait till I feel really like, yeah, okay, I'm in the mood now, and get into it. So that's the recording side of things. And then in terms of the actual production, again, because I'm sort of self-taught, so I use Reaper as my DAW, digital audio workstation, and I usually set up a bunch of tracks, usually like one for the main voice, another one for any secondary voices, especially if you want to put plugins or effects on there, and then 2 for effects, so usually sometimes more, and then 2 for ambience, one of which will be music and the other will be any kind of like, other sort of longer inserted, tracks. So like if there's, waves in the background or something, you can put that in. And then usually I'll put on a volume trim as well, so that each track can be envelope rather, so that each track can be, dips and stuff. So it's not just like, I'm not just turning the tracks universally up or down, except for the main track. I usually tend not to monkey around with that and just keep it at 0 decibels. And once I start, I'll usually just go, I won't actually I won't edit the actual voice lines. I'll do it kind of all in one. So I'll get the script up in a Word file and just start at the beginning, and then just go all the way through in a linear way. And there might be more efficient ways of doing it, but that's kind of how it works for me at the moment.
So on average, like on working with a single Dark Cosmos story, like the 5K stories that we work on average, how much time would you say from start to finish? Like how many hours do you put in? That's a really good question. Like a ballpark.
It's at the moment. So this is probably not going to be a very satisfying answer. It's tricky because I know personally I tend to suffer from decision fatigue, right? So in going through, and I have all the tabs open for the various the various stock sound effects and stuff we use, the royalty-free sound effects and music, and sifting through all the different choices and mixing them so I have to take breaks. Like I don't think I've ever in one session.
That's very important too. That's very important, taking breaks, just so you don't get burned out, or just so you can maintain your workflow.
Absolutely, whether it's with actual vocal health or just so you come back with fresh eyes. So exactly, I would say it could be like in kind of ambient time, like coming back to a story and finishing it. If I've gone like, okay, I'm going to set aside like half a day, say, to edit. So it's not as if I would spend like 5 hours. Definitely wouldn't be 5 hours just editing, but within that 5 hours, having gone for a bit of a walk, or so I like, but we might come to that. I like to walk, and going for a walk, reading for a bit, or watching something, meals. It's within that 5 hour period that I'll kind of concentrate on getting the whole thing finished, but I'll be doing a lot of stuff in that time as well, just to keep myself fresh.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm not sure how. I really should actually. It'd be interesting to kind of sit down and go, okay, start the timer, and then see when it all gets done.
I was actually going to experiment on that too, to see really how much time exactly goes into it, because I'm not really tracking. I'm working with the channel every day. Either it could be either small tasks such as answering comments, subscriber comments, or like delegating work, coming up with the thumbnails. It's during the weekdays that I do majority of the work, sorry, the weekends that I do a big part of the work, because it's the weekend. So what else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
But going back to when you said about vocal exercises, would you say that you go through those just to hit like all your vocal notes, so you can I guess I wanted to ask, let me yeah, is it to like hit all the notes right, just so like you're fully prepared when you're actually recording the story?
Pretty much. I mean, so there are a few interesting schools of thought on this. The one thing I always will remember that I was told, and this is in a singing context, but it applies equally with any use of someone's voice. If you're a teacher in a classroom and you have to yell at unruly kids all day, you want to make sure you're not going to lose your voice, as I'm sure you have some knowledge in that arena. But you basically, if you know what you're doing, you can't be too warmed up. So, you start very, very gently. You don't just go straight into, just bashing the voice around. But yeah, it's essentially so that I feel like I've got the full, as you said, the full range is sort of working. So, if I need to really, really yell or do something like that, I can do it. My voice is warm and it's going to be safe. Very, very occasionally, but not for Dark Cosmos stuff. If I've got like, if I have to cheat, so like I did some ads in New Zealand recently for a tyre company, for Maxxis tyres. They've got this new.
You say a tire? I thought you said
not
Thailand.
No,
tire,
sorry,
like,
and not attire as in clothing either.
Oh.
Like the things that go that cars have four copies of. Yeah. But anyway, and they're wanting this very kind of rugged sort of thing, which again is not my natural voice, but I just got up really early, didn't warm up, and so you know how when you wake up in the morning, yeah. So
Man.
sometimes you I deliberately don't warm up if you want to achieve a particular effect, but almost always,
exactly.
warm up and do that.
like obviously there's a lot of work that goes through into voice acting. Some people think it's just reading out the parts or the stories, but there's a lot of work into it. And you also mentioned taking breaks. So whenever you're not recording, what do you do to unwind or recharge your brain? Any hobbies that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment where I live currently is very rural. So about 5 minutes walk out my front door, you're out in farmland basically. But there's some decent like paths and things.
You showed me the pictures.
Yeah, my neighbours
Absolutely
amazing. I have human neighbours, but there are cows and goats and sheep and yeah. It is really like that. There are hawks circling around in the sky.
So you don't have. You said cows. You don't have to buy milk from the grocery store no more.
No, absolutely not. I just literally, this is how I live. I just go out, grab a teat, and start squeezing. No, of course we.
Is that how you have a really good voice because of the fresh cow's milk?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, actually, people do say you shouldn't have milk. No, we do. It's not quite that bucolic and pastoral. No. Although there is only one supermarket where I live, and it closes at 8 p.m. in the evening. So, yeah.
That's pretty early.
It is pretty early. And after that, well, there are dairies, which is dairy in New Zealand is like a sort of like a bodega, I guess. I don't know if that's the word you guys have for those kinds of places. Like, you can go in, you can get like some hot food, you can get some like essentials, basically. Anyway, right. I really, really like walking, and there's like forest as well, like a not too far away, like native forest. So I really like sort of think, I mean, it's not quite Lord of the Rings country, but it's pretty
Narnia.
close. Yeah, true. When it's those were filmed here as well. I mean, when I lived in Wellington.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, when I lived in Wellington, like you could go and there are parts of not the Shire, but like parts where the hobbits were being chased originally by the Nazgul. You could go and see those. You could see parts of Lothlorien or whatever it was called. Anyway, yeah, so I like to walk. I like to read. I had a really long time where I wasn't reading as much as I should have. I was a voracious reader as a kid, so getting back into sci-fi at the moment. Alistair Reynolds is a favourite author. He's Welsh, does hard sci-fi, so very quite scientifically based. And yeah, I mean, it's like not that close to hand, but music as well.
Ooh.
That was very quick. Well done.
Give it up for Mr. Thomas Parker.
Yeah, that's good. You're making very, very good use of that. I mean, it's not quite like radio morning zoo level. Like, have you got a toilet flush sound effect on that?
I'll get better on using the soundboard next time.
It's fun. I definitely see the appeal now. And music, and I do. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, definitely a bit of a nerd. So I've been playing. And because it's just so convenient, I've been playing Magic the Gathering Arena. Not on my phone, but so stuff like that. Just fairly stereotypical nerd stuff. I have a cat that I'm currently looking after. He doesn't actually belong to me, but anyway, it's a long, complicated story. But, what else? I used to cycle. Like, I'm trying to get back into cycling. Like, I got really
nice.
I got like really unfit like early last year, and I'm kind of slowly still gotta shed a few pounds there, but
you
that's
you and I both.
It's a constant journey, but but that's been really good. Like just getting active again, and all that stuff. Is there anything else like that's kind of interesting or unusual? Yeah, I mean, aside from the music and the singing, which I'm really trying to, like I used to be in, be involved in heavy metal bands and stuff like that. So that was a really big part of my life that hasn't been, but I think probably will come back around. So like with a lot of hobbies and interests, things come and go depending on where you're at in life.
Thanks for sharing.
No worries.
Going back to, working, to freelance work. What other projects are you excited to work on, or are working on right now that you're passionate about?
Well, let me see. Okay, this. Actually, no, never mind. I'll leave that.
Because you work with you've shared before that you work with a lot of I guess companies that you didn't know that you would be working for, like as a freelancer.
It's really strange. I mean, the amazing thing is
there was a wide range, right? Like from government to entertainment studios, gaming studios.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the sort of amazing thing really is just the kind of variety. So yeah, some of the more interesting things at the moment are like there's a Belgian company that does like VR games, but sort of like not for people to have in their own homes, but kind of like that you would have in like malls and event centers and stuff.
Oh, like arcades?
Kind of like escape,
like arcade,
yeah, arcades and like sort of virtual escape room type things. So I'm just doing something for them at the moment, like doing a voice that's pretty much just a rip-off of Wheatley from Portal 2. So it's this kind of helpful little robot voice who's terribly, oh gosh, oh no, that's not what was meant to happen. So that's really exciting, and especially because they actually have a bit of a presence in New Zealand, so it's really weird working for someone in Belgium. I mean, that's the magic of the internet, right? Like working for someone in Belgium, and then hopefully maybe doing something really egotistical and actually getting to hear myself back in New Zealand. That there are a couple of games that are coming out that I can't really talk about for various reasons.
NDA.
Yeah, something like that, and yeah. But it's still it's growing. I mean, some of the weirder stuff is like quite early on Fiverr. I ended up doing, and that was really, really exciting, doing stuff for an exam for the Brazilian Aviation Authority, which was really bizarre. I mean, again, that's something that you won't ever hear because it's, and I'm only allowed to say I did it. You know, everything else is confidential. But it's, you just never know. But then a lot of the time it is stuff for YouTube. And I really, you know, a well-written script is a well-written script regardless of the context it's in. And that, it is amazing how much of a difference that makes. I mean, maybe not a topic we'll talk about here, but it is really interesting seeing just the slight inroads that what is called AI is starting to make. You know, and whether it means we're all going to be out of a job in a year's time, I don't think so. And of course, I hope not. But yeah, that's really fun. And of course, it's always nice to do stuff just that's going to end up like back in New Zealand. So I've done a bunch of like answering phone messages for for a few companies here, and of course, like I mentioned, these tire ads. So that's kind of cool. Like whenever you just happen to catch yourself like, you know, watching something on YouTube and you're like, oh, that sounds vaguely familiar, but a long way before I'm going to be really, you know, getting up there. But it's fascinating regardless, the variety.
Yeah, because like it's like you said, you'll never know which company or which individual reaches out to you and the project that the next one you'll be working on. It's nice because, you know, like you get, not only do you get to earn money from it, but also learn from all these experiences, putting yourself out there and learning a lot from those projects.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing that has been interesting is like circling back a little bit to the Dark Cosmos is, and sort of something that I enjoy doing as a hobby. Like I've always been a big fan of horror literature as well, and specifically stuff from like around like the turn of the century or what have you. So I've got to do this, but I recently started up about early this year. I started up a little side project that was more of an exercise than anything. So it's on YouTube, and it has the extremely unwieldy name of Abominable Abominations. It does have little apostrophes before it, but it's basically like a little podcast where I serialize there's going to be a lot of H.P. Lovecraft, because again, that's something that people tend to know, and Cthulhu and all that stuff is pretty, if you like horror or sci-fi, you're going to have some knowledge of that, but also some more obscure titles. So the first like project I set myself was recording a story called The House on the Borderlands, which is like, turned out, I mean, I sort of had a quick skim through, but it's about a 7-hour, it's an audiobook. So if you want to listen to an audiobook, me reading audiobooks, then you can head on over to Abominable Abominations. But yeah, that's a project.
I'll include the link in the description below to your channel.
Yeah, and it's very different from the Dark Cosmos, which is, I think, which is quite a good thing. It's sort of fairly niche. It's horror basically from the 1870s. I mean, I might go and do some Edgar Allan Poe down the track, but basically up until the 30s and 40s, and kind of, and basically if it's out of copyright, that's the main thing. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people will appreciate that. There's certainly an audience for that. People who appreciate classic literature, or like classic horror, sci-fi horror in your case, because you mentioned H.P. Lovecraft.
And it runs the gamut, that like some of it's pretty pulpy and lowbrow, but it's just something different. And part of it, the exercise was just to go, well, can I kind of keep up to a schedule of a thing a week that is, that I just do as a kind of discipline exercise, because I'm not, I just do it for the love of it, really. So, but it kind of also keeps me, maybe there'll be a week where I don't get the opportunity to do something for the Dark Cosmos, don't get to do anything that's directly creative. So this is kind of like Abominable Abominations is kind of a nice little through line to make sure that I remind myself why I enjoy doing this. Yeah.
Gotcha. Like going back to our channel, Dark Cosmos, it's been 2 years that we were working together.
Wild.
I wanted to ask, what do you think the future holds for the Dark Cosmos?
I mean, the clue is, I feel like there's such a clue in the name, and I hadn't really thought about it until this moment, but I would say, and not that I'm the most up on the play with this, but right from the get-go, you have been casting your eye around for the idea of collaboration, right? The idea of these multi-episode, multi-character, sometimes multi-universe or multi-reality spanning stories. And I think that's really an area where the Dark Cosmos has always pushed the envelope compared to other, or at least, that's one of its big, points of difference. I mean, in terms of the future, I mean, I can always imagine, I just know, like, as a fan and a listener myself, longer form content is always so appealing, right? But then, even then,
long form content in a faceless format as well, because like it's it's an audio experience for the viewers, and like you'd be surprised like how long people listen to some of our stories.
Yeah, well, I wonder as well for you, because I bet there's stuff, and of course as things change and you learn more things about what works, because you're always wanting to keep, to grow the audience, and it's that tricky, I guess, that balancing act of it being broadly appealing but not just being completely generic either.
Exactly.
But it'll be interesting to see how things, as the identity of the channel, I think, becomes more, more sort of distinct, and yet as it broadens out, is what, I'm wondering, it'd be so interesting to see whether or not, you've got these kind of shared, speaking of something like the Cthulhu mythos, but the SCP Foundation, right? These kind of fandoms, which are also shared literary projects, and I wonder if that's something that may, over time, that the Dark Cosmos might become involved in. Who knows what, because especially as you say, like, with these faceless, albeit now you can see all this, distinct performers and characters, whether that's something that might become like gain a life of its own or a continuity of its own. Because I always remember the first thing that I always remember seeing, like, comments, and would always make me go, oh wow, that's cool, is people going, is there going to be a part 2? When people love to be able to live in stories, and so it'll be interesting to see how these things unspool and develop as the Dark Cosmos goes on. I think that's what I'm really, really interested to see, and hope I get a chance to be along the ride, on the ride for. That doesn't make sense, but I'm sure people can understand what I mean. Yeah. Oh
yeah, you will. You'll. We're gonna go a long way with this, but yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by the next couple years of what other type of stories we can bring to our audiences. Okay, so there's last week, more than a week ago, I also posted an invitation for our viewers to submit questions for you, and so but before I go into that, I do want to ask one very important question. Are you ready? How much water do you drink whenever you're recording?
Whoa. That is, Ken, that is one of the most profound questions that anybody has ever asked me. Whoa. Dude, frankly, I'm affronted.
I'm so sorry
ask.
to boggle your mind with this question. I'm just,
This interview is over.
Oh my gosh, Thomas, please come back. I'm so sorry, man. Like,
No, I'm
gonna
kidding.
pay you double.
Okay, I can't actually tell you how much water I drink, but I do drink it out of this very nice. This is hopefully this doesn't count as a political endorsement, but this is an official drink bottle of the New Zealand Green Party.
Does that have cow's milk?
No, it's just very good. No, it's just pure New Zealand wai, aka water, agua, Wasser, aqua. Try to think of other language words for water that I know, and I think I've exhausted them all now. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Do you know, it's funny, I actually try not... I feel like and I've been noticing it recently, there's like a perfect line of hydrated, because you can get overhydrated, and it also just might be that I need to monkey around with my audio settings a little bit, because, you start getting those... And this is going to really be off-putting for people. Or it might be ASMR for some people, I don't know. I'm not going to start rubbing my beard against the mic or anything weird like that, so it's fine.
Hey,
anyway.
some of the female listeners might love it.
Well, hey, look, no, I'm not going to promise anything I say right now is just not going to come across well. So we're going to move right along. But yes, yeah. So I find like if I'm too hydrated, then you get sort of mouth sounds and stuff. So I usually have like a good bit of water before I start, and then kind of just go right through. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
I think like sips too, not just like drinking a lot. I think sips in between the recording does the trick for me, at least. Like whenever I'm recording, and you're kind of weird, but. I always drink Fiji whenever I'm recording.
I don't know. Is that Flash? I mean, I guess it's no Evian.
Oh, Evian.
I don't understand why that always weirded me out in the Truman Show. The pronunciation of because I say, hang on, yeah, I say Fiji.
Fiji. Okay. I just
Fiji,
say
Fiji.
Yeah.
Fiji. No, because I always remember Jim Carrey in the Truman Show talking about wanting to go to Fiji. Anyway, That's a completely pointless piece of... It's not even really trivia. It's just something that I said. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's the water question. The very, very, very serious, important water question answered.
So sorry for making you feel discombobulated.
It's quite all right. It's okay. We need to be challenged, and I think that's
exactly.
These
you love challenges.
Absolutely, these hard-hitting questions are really key.
Absolutely. All right, so we have a few questions from our listeners. Let's start from Tina Ralston 2788. Okay. They ask, which accent do you like to use the most?
That's a really good question. I'm going to say this about every question, of course. I don't know. I think like to use is really tricky. I mean, I guess, okay, without, because I know I tend to ramble on. Probably, I mean... The one, again, that as long as it doesn't get too much for some people, but I find I sort of have a generic American kind of voice.
There you go.
That I try and, that sounds sort of authoritative, although that is actually a word I find myself tripping up over a lot. The other weird thing, which doesn't answer the question, but it's so much easier to read to a script than try and just talk, and I find myself hearing, oh no, the accent's starting to slip or whatever. But this is the one I think probably, statistically speaking, I go to the most. Yeah.
That you default into. Cool.
Exactly.
So the classic American accent.
Next question. Generic, who knows? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Next question is from John Wesh 5926. They ask, what are your favorite characters to narrate?
Oh, lost you for a second there. What are my favorite characters to narrate?
Yeah, it says, what are your favorite characters to narrate? I think maybe they're talking about, or he's talking about personality-wise, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I must say, like the last, like one or two of the last collaborative or group stories, I did get to do like a sort of unstable or bloodthirsty, which I don't, because I do know there's a tendency for like me to get written in as sort of like captains who like go mad or something. But there was some fun. Like I enjoyed doing the sort of the like, I forget the exact voice I used, but it was probably like that kind of, you know, sort of a little bit Australian. That was fun to do recently. Like a kind of, I must admit, I really love like the character of Kano from Mortal Kombat. Because it's such a stereotype, but it's kind of a fun one. Even though he is Australian, but there's a lot of overlap culturally of that type of like, you know, he's a bloody good bloke, but he's also a fucking psycho. Actually, I probably shouldn't have sworn, but anyway, yeah, that's a fun like recent sort of thing to do, and it's also like you don't know how much, like if you do something that is quite specific to Aotearoa New Zealand, you wonder whether that will translate internationally, but you know, you just have a go and see what people think. Yeah, those kinds of characters. I do like authoritative characters, to be fair, and again, it's hard not to slip into cliche and, you know, you sort of end up going with some kind of very vicious, cold-sounding Englishman. You know,
it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if have you ever done a Gandalf impersonation?
No, but
you shall not pass.
Yeah, exactly. It was hang on. What is the line? Because there's the whole thing about the Flame of Arnor. Because of course they've actually recently they've just released. Speaking about Magic the Gathering, they've just released a hang on, sorry. They've just released like a set that's Lord of the Rings based. So it's been very much on my mind. How does the speech go? Da, 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 da. Oh, come on. This is just going to stop the interview dead again.
Oh,
Give me 2 seconds.
Take your time. That's fine. Got it?
No, I'm not going to find it. But that's fine. I'm just going to say, because he doesn't actually, because doesn't he actually say, does he say you shall not pass? Because isn't this a classic case of like, beam me up, Scotty, and Luke, I am your father, and that he actually...
No, I did mention Gandalf, right?
Yeah, I know, but does he actually... Is that actually... Oh,
no,
here
it
we
made
go.
me think.
Yeah, because in the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf utters the phrase as he blocks the path of the Balrog. The quote has been still... So I'm just going to do this. It's going to be terrible, but I'll just give it a go. You cannot pass. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Uldoon, go back to the shadow. You shall not pass. Anyway, that's my best. Probably blew out the mic. Anyway. And I tend to spit. That's another bad tendency as a voice actor. I tend to slur my issues when I get too into it. Anyway. Yeah, I think I answered the question.
Cool.
Jeez Louise.
That's so cool. All right. Next question by Widow Spider Juice. Oh.
Scary.
Okay.
Creepy.
Sounds toxic. How did the dark cosmos get you in the first place? I think we answered
We've
this
covered
already.
that. I mean, if there's anything else I want to say about that, no, I mean, it was really interesting because it was exciting. This is just a little extra fact that I remember now, because of course the Dark Cosmos, you didn't actually have any videos up. You hadn't uploaded any thing?
No, it was
No.
like right. It was just about to launch when I first hired you.
Yeah, and I remember, like, I literally said, and I this has happened less so now because I sort of have a better idea of whether I want to save something for a portfolio or something. But I was like, just very casually, because you were very approachable. You're a nice, approachable guy, good communicator. That's all right, A+. But I was like, oh, what's the channel called? Because I was you just do something, and you don't. Even as Gandalf says, even the wise cannot foresee all ends. You don't foresee how, that this is going to turn into a long-term thing. So I was like, oh, what's the channel called? I'd like to check it out. And yeah, there you go. So yeah. It was just through Fiverr, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And for those who don't know what Fiverr is, it's a freelancer platform where you can hire freelancers basically to writing, music, video editing, all kinds of freelancing stuff, even like doing AI stuff as well.
It's good because there is, there's definitely, I know, among the voice acting profession, there is definitely Fiverr has, I would say, probably for some, a mixed reputation. The thing that I think is really worthwhile, there's a low barrier to entry. So if you can get there's not a lot of gatekeeping, which I think is a good thing, because it means you can get involved, and if you really want to hone your craft and try and make a living out of the thing and work on, which is what I found, because when I started doing it, you're really just trying to get some jobs. You offer very, very low prices, but there is the opportunity to hone everything, so
absolutely,
it's like anything, it's a mixed bag, and it is what you make of it. But it's a pretty famous freelance platform.
Are you also on any other freelancer platform? I forgot what the other prominent
I need to be like a little bit more savvy about this. I'm also on Upwork. And
there you go, Upwork.
Upwork's another main one. It's quite similar to Fiverr. There are some notable differences. And then the other one I also have started using this year is voices.com, which is quite different, the type of work you get from that, and it's specifically for voice acting. And then occasionally Voice 123, but voices.com is where I'm really sort of focusing a lot of energy at the moment. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Last question by Dual Lust.
Okay.
And let me see. You'll get this. ASL.
I feel like it's too.
It took me a second for this one. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like,
I feel like I'm on America Online
MIRC.
Instant Messenger. Yeah, and it's like
days.
about 2004. Or I'm like on Neopets or something. Anyway. So I'm it's all right to say this. 33.
And for our younger audiences, just to clarify for our younger audiences, because I've seen the numbers. We do have younger audiences. ASL stands for age, sex, location.
Mm-hmm. So 33, male, Aotearoa, New Zealand. There we go.
There you go, Dual Lust.
Let me hang on, let me redo that. Yeah. That's broad enough. I mean, this is a small country, but why did
I'm gonna bleep that out.
Yeah, thank you. No, because I'm a nice person, and that's not the sort of rude, terrible thing I would ever say. Yeah, but that's enough. That's broad enough that no one's going to be able to track me down. Anyway.
Gotcha. Unless it's John Wick or what was that? Liam Neeson. Neeson.
That's a good point.
So those are all the questions from our viewers.
Sweet.
Before this interview ends, I want to play a game.
Okay.
It's a really short game. It's something I call Rapid Fire. Basically, it's a rip-off game from this podcast from Omar Elitar, and his podcast name is The Passionate Few. Basically, I'm gonna say a bunch of words, and then you tell me the first thing or first phrase that comes to your mind.
Okay.
The only rule is you can't repeat yourself. You can't repeat the word that you used previously.
Okay.
So let's start rapid fire. First words. Voice acting.
Passion.
Elon Musk.
Ambivalent.
The Dark Cosmos.
Marvelous.
Marvelous. I love that. Space travel.
Daunting.
Mars.
Red.
Hey, the red planet, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. First word or first phrase that comes to mind.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
okay.
The
bringer of war. Then that would have been my second one.
The universe.
Infinite.
Aliens.
Unlikely.
Unlikely.
I mean, the Fermi paradox is certainly worrying. Anyway,
and it feels creepier too, like knowing that we're only the life out here in this vast, infinite space.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next
and the eventual winding down
sorry.
and the heat death of the universe is very scary. That's a cool game. I'm really looking forward to seeing, especially what our writers.
Wait,
how they respond.
I got a few more words. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Cryosleep.
Mysterious.
Money.
Important. But I wish it wasn't.
Love.
Overwhelming.
And lastly, success.
Desirable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, that wraps up our rapid fire game.
I was really, really worried I was going to say something, well, depends on your point of view, I guess, something really, really Freudian and embarrassing. But thankfully, those were all well-chosen examples. Thanks, Kian.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was so funny when I mentioned Mars and you were like, red.
Red, I know. I was like, yeah, I'm doing so well. Everything's been more than one syllable so far. Daunting. Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah. Red.
Hey, that's
okay,
the first
though.
word that comes to your mind.
It's relevant. At least, yeah.
It is the red planet.
At least, yeah. I always remember there's a famous scene in a really good British TV show called Peep Show that I urge all our listeners to watch if they don't know it already, where, I'm not going to repeat this, but one of the main characters is having a session with a psychologist or a psychologist, and they play this game. And he says he says something. He says that the psychologist says the word mother, and Mark says something very, very embarrassing. So I'm glad nothing that happened here. Yeah, I won't say what it is, but we'll just let your imaginations run wild on that one.
Oh my goodness.
Peep Show, it's a great show.
But I do want to thank you for your time, for lending not just your voice this time, but your face, so that people can connect with us on a more personal level. And I do appreciate you coming to this, our first episode of Behind the Voice.
Oh, thank you, Ken. It's been really, really fun. I mean, I must admit, I've always, considering this is essentially it's a creative, as a professional relationship first and foremost, but I've always enjoyed just, the opportunities we have had to talk. We've talked some, but not a lot, but I feel like we communicate well. So it's been really fun. You've crafted this interview really well. And yeah, I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to, because I know, we're all in different parts of the world, and I know some other members of the Dark Cosmos better than others. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know them through this better. And I hope this is interesting for our listeners and viewers, and hopefully no one really, really just rips me a new one, which, to be fair, you would be justified in doing so, but that's why I'm here. It's, it's part of the give and take of performing and putting it up on YouTube.
Absolutely. And for those people who want to listen more to Thomas outside of the Dark Cosmos, I'm gonna put his link to his YouTube channel in the description. And also, since we mentioned that Thomas does freelance work, I'm also gonna link his Fiverr profile, just so if you guys want to hire him for your next voice acting gig, or maybe you need someone to narrate some stuff. He's really a highly skilled voice actor and narrator as well. So I'm gonna put his links down in the description. But yeah, that wraps up our first episode of Behind the Voice. Our next oh yeah, hold on. Woo!
Good stuff, dude. Nicely done. Hey, sweet.
Sorry, I'm not. How do you say it? Sorry, I don't. We don't sell merch yet, but just wanted to say
that's cool.
Stay cosmic. But yeah, our next episode would be with Danny, one of our writers. So stay tuned for that. I also posted, a call for questions if you guys want to ask anything about ask anything for Danny. She's one of our writers, and she's been with us for the past 2 years as well.
An OG, so to speak. And actually, I'm working on, or we, I should say, are working on a story by her right now. So yes. Yeah, good fun to be doing one of hers again. And yeah, ask questions, because if you don't, I'm going to put stuff in there, and you don't want that. You don't want me to be asking questions, because you just don't know what they're going to be. So ask the questions, because otherwise someone else will.
Gotcha. All right, folks. Thank you again, Mr. Thomas Parker.
Adios.
And remember,
hairera, enohora,
and
depending whether you're leaving or I'm leaving. So hairera or enohora. Anyway, bye everybody.
And remember, everyone, stay cosmic.
Stay cosmic.